That's right. Authorities found a tunnel beneath the group's headquarters. However, between the walls were various objects, and what caught the most attention were the mattresses with supposed bloodstains. The patio of their mansion resembled a butcher shop. The truth behind the fugitives' band is revealed. Omar Garcia Harfuch, faced with the concerns raised by the group's disappearance and death, decided to conduct an investigation at his mansion, but what he found there left him horrified. What did he find there? Who were these men really? In an operation carried out during the early hours of Monday morning, federal forces led by Federal Security Secretary Omar Garcia Harfuch searched the group's mansion, located on the border of Riosa and Diaz Ordaz, Tamaulipas. What they found inside has been described by authorities as one of the most chilling discoveries in the country's recent history. 184 lifeless bodies, many of them showing signs of torture, mutilation, and execution by firearm, as well as tons of drugs and a war arsenal distributed in various hidden compartments. The search warrant was issued after intelligence agents received a series of conflicting reports from protected witnesses, former collaborators of the group, and satellite tracking that indicated anomalous activity at the residence months before the musician's disappearance. The mansion, a modern-style building with an underground bunker, was registered in the name of an entertainment company in Texas, used as a tax front for managing the band's income. At first glance, it was a center of musical and creative operations. In practice, it proved to be a true chamber of horrors. The operation, carried out shortly after 3 a.m., included more than 120 National Guard personnel, canine teams, motion detection equipment, thermal mapping drones, and field forensic specialists. From the moment they crossed the estate's main gate, alarming clues began to emerge. Rooms with unusually thick sound insulation, ducts with access to underground tunnels, and surveillance cameras that had been disconnected since the day the group disappeared. The first body was found in a tub sealed with cement. From then on, the horror continued unabated. Within a 6-hour period, the teams found bodies piled up, in hidden cold storage, others buried under the garden, some walled up in false walls, and about 20 more scattered around what was apparently an acoustic rehearsal room converted into a torture chamber. Many were mutilated, others had bullet wounds from close range, and several more showed signs of having been subjected to rudimentary medical procedures. The official body count so far stands at 184, but authorities do not rule out a rise as excavation progresses in the tunnels that connect the mansion with other properties in the vicinity. The ages of the victims range from 15 to 50, and most had no identification. Some were carrying remnants of uniforms, vests with the initials of various cartels, and civilian clothes stained with dried blood. Experts indicated that many of the deaths could have occurred months or even years apart, suggesting a prolonged extermination center, active even while the band was still active. But the surprise didn't end with the bodies. In a compartment hidden behind a retractable bookcase, officers found more than 700 kilograms of methamphetamine, 300 kilograms of cocaine, and smaller amounts of fentanyl in powder and pill form. Everything was labeled and stored with logistical codes that, according to narcotics experts, correspond to international distribution networks headed to Texas, Chicago, and Los Angeles. In addition, weapons for the exclusive use of the Army were seized, including .50 and .50 caliber Barrett rifles, grenade launchers, modified M4 rifles, hundreds of magazines, boxes containing thousands of rounds of ammunition, and more than 20 ballistic vests bearing Gulf Cartel logos. Also found were spying devices, satellite transmitters, border route maps, and forged documents, including visas, consular IDs, and passports. The magnitude of the discovery prompted Harfuch to personally travel to the site hours after the search began, dressed in a bulletproof helmet and tactical vest, escorted by his intelligence team. The secretary descended into the underground corridors, where the largest number of bodies were concentrated. According to witnesses, upon seeing the extent of the massacre, Harfuch put his hands to his face and remained silent for several minutes. Now, what would happen next? Who were the real killers? The members of the fugitives' gang? Around 6:40 p.m., While forensic experts were marking and labeling human remains in the armored room used as a torture chamber, an intelligence officer assigned to the Special Operations Team approached Harfuch. He was dressed in tactical fatigues with a hard face and held a laminated folder in one hand and a portable hard drive in the other. He spoke in a low voice in Harfuch's ear, and Harfuch's expression changed. In that moment, the secretary ceased to be an official in control of a crime scene. For a moment, he appeared to be simply a man staring into the abyss. The content of the documents and recordings handed over to the head of security was devastating. They forcefully revealed the sustained collaboration between the fugitives and the Gulf Cartel, a relationship that went far beyond the alleged coercion to transport drugs or act as cross-border mules. What the reports revealed was a perfectly structured network of criminal complicity, where the musicians not only participated in the cartel's logistical tasks, but, according to visual and written evidence, were actively involved in extermination operations, arms trafficking, human trafficking, and covert executions of targets targeted by the criminal organization. The first recordings were recovered from a hidden server in one of the mansion's underground rooms. They were encrypted, but specialists were able to access them using a password system stored on an old cell phone also found in the residence. The content was described by members of the forensic team as inhumane and difficult to process, even for personnel with experience in war scenes. In one of the videos, two of the gang members, both now deceased, are seen witnessing and actively participating in the interrogation and execution of an alleged informant. The victim, bound hand and foot, is beaten for several minutes with metal pipes while being forced to confess to alleged leaks to U.S. authorities. One of the musicians shouts instructions while another films with a cell phone. At the end of the clip, a voice is heard saying, "This is how you silence traitors. Let others see this." Then a gunshot is heard. Another 27-minute recording shows an even more disturbing scene. A young woman is dragged into a kind of dark room lined with plastic where she is interrogated, stripped naked, beaten, and finally brutally executed with a knife. The folder attached to the digital file describes the victim as a romantic enemy of one of the group's operatives, and her name appears on a list that appears to correspond to a casualty log. In the corner of the document, a signature reads, "Fugitive number 4, but the evidence doesn't end there." Other recovered files contain photos of minors, some with false identification documents, in possession of transportation logistics, passports, plane tickets, and consular papers. According to investigators, these documents are clear evidence of a human trafficking scheme bound for cities like Houston and New York, where children and adolescents were exploited as servants, meat for prostitution rings, or mules for internal transport. Several of the papers given to Harfuch consist of handwritten logs, presumably by the group's logistics manager, detailing payments, routes, deliveries, and corrections. This last word appears repeatedly alongside initials or nicknames, always followed by a date, an address, and an amount. Prosecutors interpret correction as the euphemism used to refer to the murders. At least 3 of these entries contain notes such as FUG present, okay, which reinforces the hypothesis that some members of the gang were present or even tested the executions. Upon learning of the contents, Harf requested a makeshift tent and a secure terminal to view the footage on his own. According to his bodyguards, he spent more than an hour in silence reviewing recording after recording. Upon leaving, he called together his closest circle and uttered a statement that was immediately echoed by the internal communications teams. "This changes everything. We were wrong about them, and we're going to tell the truth." Harsh, complete, unfiltered. That same night, a preliminary statement was issued by the Ministry of Security, announcing the discovery of audiovisual and documentary material of high strategic value linking the musical group to extremely serious criminal activities. No names or details were given, but it was announced that the following day Harf would hold an extraordinary press conference in Mexico City. Will Harf tell the truth or prefer not to tell the press everything? With a face that oscillated between indignation and operational coldness, Harfuch spoke at 10 a.m. in the press room of the central building of the Secretariat of Security. There was no polite introduction or protocolary phrases, Just a direct, lapidary statement that resonated with an electric shock in the room. They lied to us all. They weren't victims. They were accomplices. They were perpetrators. And we will not sugarcoat the truth to protect those who used music as a cover for the most brutal crime. With that sentence, he began a presentation that, in just over 45 minutes, completely dismantled the public narrative that, until days before, had described the Fugitives as a group of young musicians murdered for daring to sing uncomfortable truths. Harfuch confirmed that the gang has maintained a direct, structured, and sustained relationship with mid- and high-ranking officials of the Gulf Cartel since at least 2021, actively participating in operations involving arms trafficking, human trafficking, drug distribution, and the execution of cartel enemies. Each body found in that mansion represents a crime that cannot be ignored. And in many of those crimes, members of the group were present. Some ordered them, others recorded them, and still others simply celebrated them. That cannot be romanticized, he said harshly. Unlike previous press conferences, on this occasion the secretary did not withhold information. Edited excerpts from the videos found in the group's bunker were shown, pixelating the victims' faces, but making clear the level of brutality that had been reached. Women tortured, men executed at point-blank range, teenagers chained and beaten, and members of the group actively or collaterally participating in these acts. Many are wondering if it was fair for them to die the way they did. And although the state does not celebrate anyone's death, I want to be very clear. They chose that path. They accepted power, money, and blood. And anyone who chooses to live in that world cannot expect a clean end. What happened was not a tragedy. It was the consequence of conscious and systematic decisions, Harfuch declared without hesitation. The secretary also announced the immediate start of a new national plan for a thorough review of links between musical groups, influencers, artistic representatives, and organized crime structures. The instructions are clear. Any person, institution, promoter, or cultural entity that presents reasonable evidence of collaborating directly or indirectly with cartels will be investigated, audited, and, if appropriate, brought to justice. We will not allow another case like this. We will not mourn accomplices, thinking they are victims. Starting today, every contract will be reviewed, every tour in high-risk areas will be audited, and every band that steps on stage will know that if they are collaborating with a cartel, we will uncover it. It doesn't matter if they sing, act, or record music videos with millions of views. No one will be above the law, he stated. Among the first steps announced by the agency is the creation of a national registry of artists and groups that perform in areas classified as high risk. The opening of a special cultural intelligence unit tasked with monitoring possible financial links between entertainment and organized crime. The creation of a blacklist of representatives, promoters, and businessmen who have facilitated venues, payments, or logistics for criminal cells under the guise of cultural events. In addition, an intensive search will be launched for production companies associated with the fugitives, many of which are already being investigated for money laundering, resource triangulation, and unusual bank movements to the United States, Colombia, and Panama. The press conference also addressed the social impact of the case. Harfuch acknowledged the legitimate pain of those who initially felt empathy for the gang and was unstinting in his self-criticism. We were all deceived, and so were we. And that's why we're here today, standing up and hiding nothing. Because if we should learn anything from this, it's that crime no longer disguises itself solely as hitmen. Sometimes he sings, sometimes he goes on stage, sometimes he wins awards, asked by journalists whether these actions could lead to censorship or persecution against artists. The head of security was emphatic. This isn't about art, it's about crime. And as long as someone isn't killing, selling children, or torturing people, behind a microphone, they have nothing to fear. The impact of the message was immediate. Arts organizations expressed concern, but also a willingness to collaborate. No artist should be afraid if their art is clean, but if their success is built on blood, then they're not an artist, they're an accomplice. The National Association of Regional Musicians said in a statement, Throughout the press conference, Harfuch mentioned the names, members of several gangs that are already under observation. He did not accuse them, but warned that their links will be reviewed with lupa. He also urged honest artists to report any attempt at coherence or infiltration by criminal organizations. Crime no longer just buys weapons, it buys stages, it buys applause, it buys fame. And while we celebrate songs, they celebrate crimes. That's over, he said, harshly. And now what would happen? What will be the new reality for gangs in Mexico? The operation, internally known as a silent network, was executed in coordination between the National Guard, the Financial Intelligence Unit, FIU, and the National Intelligence Center under direct instructions from the Ministry of Security. The objective was, of course, to thoroughly audit the income, assets, and relationships of those artists, influencers, and representatives whose economic activity did not match their declared income and who had also been seen in photographs or videos alongside alleged members of cartels such as the Gulf Cartel, the CJNG, the Metros, and dissident cells of the ZAS. During the early hours of Thursday morning, tactical teams raided 5 properties located in Monterrey, Culiacan, Guadalajara, and Mexico City. The first detainees were members of the northern group Los Despiadados de la Frontera, known for their similar style to the fugitives and for having shared the stage with them on multiple occasions. According to federal sources, his declared income between 2022 and 2024 did not exceed 3 million pesos per year, but bank transactions detected by the UI revealed transactions totaling more than 70 million, including deposits in accounts in Belize and Panama. In addition to musical equipment, 2 million pesos in cash were seized at the home of the vocalist. Luxury watches, jewelry without receipts, and a cell phone containing photos of him with a man identified by authorities as Commander Jr., the alleged regional head of the CJNG in Jalisco. In several images, they appeared embraced, toasting with bottles labeled with encrypted codes, and in one image, both held assault rifles personalized with gold plates. Hours later, federal agents arrested Sebastián Galvin, a fitness and lifestyle influencer with more than 4 million followers on TikTok, at his home. The cause is unexplained financial movements and his appearance in a series of images leaked from a ranch in Sinaloa, where he is seen surrounded by armored trucks, long guns, and in the company of at least 2 Chapitos operatives. Galvin, who presented himself as a food supplement businessman, had received more than 40 deposits in less than a year for amounts exceeding 500,000 pesos, all from companies currently under investigation for alleged money laundering. At the time of his arrest, he tried to justify his assets by claiming catalog sales and legal import deals, but was unable to show any documentation to support the motorcycles he had been driving. The scandal grew even more when the Spark of Nayarit, a singer of corridos, tumbados, and a recurring figure on social media with videos that had accumulated more than 50 million views, was arrested. Authorities confirmed that not only did they maintain ties with Gulf Cartel operatives, but a recorded video call was found on one of the confiscated phones in which he was heard coordinating the logistics of an event in Tamaulipas with a man identified as Negro Vargas, the alleged manager of the Ciudad Victoria Plaza. The conversation discussed paying him in cash, avoiding cameras, and using vehicles without license plates to avoid leaving a trace. News of the arrests went viral in a matter of minutes. On social media, some fans defended their idols, claiming that it was all a government setup to attack successful people, while others were outraged. We spent years admiring them, and it turns out they were killing or laundering money. How disgusting, wrote a follower of Galvin on her Instagram account before closing her profile. During a brief statement to the press, Harfuch confirmed the authenticity of all the operations and announced that this was just the beginning. This is not a manhunt, it's a purge. We will review every peso, every contract, every public appearance of those who use fame as a shield to do business with organized crime. Today there are no untouchables. If they sing, influence, or dance for cartels, we will investigate them, she assured. Internal sources at the ministry also revealed that another 16 arrest warrants are ready to be executed in the coming days. Among the leaked names are 2 television presenters, an urban singer with contracts in Miami, and a host of erotic content on premium platforms, whose income is not. They are subject to their tax returns and appear in photographs at private parties of key figures in organized crime. In addition, the UIF has frozen more than 70 bank accounts associated with these figures, triggering an avalanche of legal actions by private firms seeking to halt the investigations. However, the authorities remain firm. Those who cannot justify the source of their money will have to answer. This is not about popularity, it's about legality, declared a spokesperson for the agency. Public pressure intensified further when fragments of emails between artist representatives and alleged criminal links were leaked. In one of them, dated 2023, the show in Durango was confirmed. Payment will be in cash, as usual. And remember that the kids already know the protocol. No cell phones, no publications, and with the settle approved in advance by the people in the plaza. The message was interpreted as proof that certain artists accepted conditions imposed by criminal cells to perform in their territories. According to Harf, these types of pacts are not part of folklore or entertainment. They are criminal collaborations and will be prosecuted as such. The news has created a domino effect. Several groups began to cancel performances in the north of the country, citing security concerns, while other artists rushed to issue statements disassociating themselves from any relationship with drug trafficking. The National Association of Music Representatives issued a bulletin asking its members to refrain from participating in events that do not have formalized contracts, electronic invoices, and clear legal conditions. The spectacle can't be a gray area. It's either clean or complicit. The document concludes, in the midst of it all, victims' groups celebrated the operation. For years, we knew something wasn't right. How come so many young people became millionaires in months with ghost tours, front companies, and without ever being held accountable? Finally, someone is doing something, said Maria Elena Ruiz, mother of a young man who disappeared in 2020 and an activist in Matamoros. And so we come to the end of this video. If you liked it, I invite you to give us a like so we can continue making more videos like this one. Also, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. I wish you a great day. Until next time.